It's time for another episode of The Oil Stream with Dustin Nielsen and Tom Gazzola, presented by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Nielsen and Gazzola with you here on the Blue Jays Stream. The Oil Stream, brought to you by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Tommy, happy opening day, my man.
Happy opening day, Gibby. Give Chella wonderment to you, and I can tell you really like the Montreal Expos.
Yeah, I love the Expos. Huge fan. This jacket is just, I only wear it one day a year. Comes out today. It's like brand new. Although maybe if they go on a run this year, I'll be living in this jacket next fall, buddy. It'll be fun. It'll be good. So anyway, yeah, Blue Jays opening day. Oilers on a heater. We're certainly going to get to that. As always, the Oil Stream is brought to you by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. And you can go out to St. Albert. Now open in St. Albert. Get that Oilers meal. They're still advertising the Oilers meal, which is a ton of food. The novelty puck. It's excellent. Windermere, St. Albert, the two newest locations, over a dozen of them around Edmonton. Lots of people already sliding in, asking some questions. We'll certainly get to that.
Nice.
We'll have your Ken Morrison Remax question of the day a little bit later on. Mr. Gazzola, post-game, TSN at 1260 after the win over the Kings. What was the vibe last night, buddy?
Well, myself and Jeff Walker, post-game Ranger, were holding it down along with Matty Kassian. I love that nickname, and it's good to see Jeff settling in. But Walker Post-Game Ranger, I think, is a tremendous
That is amazing.
nickname for him. I mean, if you saw this guy and you could, get a feel for him in person like we get a chance to do at the station, I think people would really like him even more. And especially if he did his next promo shoot wearing like stirrups and like cowboy boots with a vest and a cowboy hat. If you knew him and how he looks and everything, you would just be like, this guy's a rock star. And I love Walker Post-Game Rangers. So good mood on the post-game show. A lot of people liking what they saw from the Oilers last night. That's a key win. And, when you want to look at the detractors, probably the only thing that really came to light was Tyson Barrie / Leon Draisaitl's gaffe on the power play that led to the shorty by Trevor Moore. But yeah, it was good. And I get that mental image in my head of Jeff Walker, Post-Game Ranger, whenever I say that nickname and read it and hear it.
I want him cut into like the intro for the show. But instead of Chuck Norris, it's like the deep fake of Jeff Walker's face on there. That would be amazing. Like, we got to make that happen because he's been a pretty good fit. He's that's hilarious. All right, so 6 games. The Oilers have won their last 6. Mike Smith is 6-0-1 in his last 7. He's got the 958 over this road trip. And we'll get maybe more specifically to Smith, unless the answer is Smith here, Tommy. But to you, what has been the key? What has been the thing that has stood out the most for you over this 6-game winning streak right now?
Mike Smith, obviously a big part of it. No question about that. And that's great to see. But to me, it's kind of the team structure, the resolve, the commitment to defense, back checking. And that's really, I think, led to Mike Smith having an opportunity to make saves. There's been a lack of blunders for the most part. I know we saw one last night, but it feels like the Oilers are starting to tighten up their game, and they're getting the offense that they need. The PK is starting to come around, and the power play is clicking at the right moments mostly. It didn't do much last night. So I think it feels like the momentum is starting to build, and I'm starting to get flashbacks to 2017, Dusty, in the last 15 games of the season back in 16-17, when that team was winning those important big games down the stretch. They beat the LA Kings, I remember, at home to clinch, and it was just this crazy atmosphere. I remember I had to do the post-game walk-off interviews on the ice, and I had Jordan Eberle with me, and he just looked at me and he gave me a bump because I had started the year he came to the team and started playing for them. And so it was like this perpetual disappointment every end of season. That was the first time I was going to get to cover playoffs and he was going to be in the playoffs. And then I asked him a question and he's like, I can't hear a word you're saying. And I'm like, doesn't matter. And he had these great responses and the fans were into it. I just remember that building and just the feeling of the team. And this team is starting to have some of that, it seems like to me.
Man, this city was amazing back in 2017. It was just so fun to be a part of. I mean, from a media perspective, from being out in the city during the series, me and the boys. I mean, we went on my buddies Maddie and Beecroft and stuff. Man, we went on a good run, especially in that second round series. I've probably be in a little bit of a different spot right now, but for other people, this city would be amazing if they can go on a run. And I honestly, when we say go on a run, win around. Win around, and who knows what happens if you get to the second round. Maybe you continue this momentum. Now, Connor McDavid scored in 6 straight, huge part of it. Mike Smith's a very interesting one to me because we've been waiting for him to A, stay healthy, and then B, find his game, and C, in games where even he wins, not look so loosey-goosey and down on his belly. And maybe it's just because, they've won some low-scoring games that we're starting to view the last couple games that way. But, Tommy, I think the last 2 games that we've seen from Mike Smith have probably been his best 2 of the season, and that's outside of the pass, obviously. But I'm talking about, stopping the puck. I think he's had a couple of pretty good games back-to-back. So what type of expectations should we have for Mike Smith moving forward here, do you think?
I think we should have the expectation that he continues to build on this, especially that he's starting to show little glimpses of what he did last season where he was tremendous. And for whatever reason, I've seen texts come in on my show. I'm sure they've come into your show where people are like, well, the Oilers will lose because of goaltending again in the playoffs next season or this coming season. And it's like, hey, hang on a second. They didn't lose because of goaltending against Winnipeg. Mike Smith was really good. They lost low-scoring games in overtime because they couldn't get added offense. There was no depth to their scoring. Goaltending was fine in the playoffs. So, I think it's fine to expect Mike Smith to get better as this goes along. And the scary thing, at least why I'm hesitant to go, Mike Smith's ready to rock. Like, this guy's playoff ready. He's doing great, is because A, he looks like he gets hurt every game, shaking off his knee against San Jose. And then B, even though he hasn't really let in the bad goal squeakers in the last handful of games, there's moments where you're like, oh, that harmless shot looks like it almost got by him. And how many times does he look startled and look behind him? Those are red flags to me, at least. And I think a lot of fans feel the same way. So nice to see. Let's see if he could keep it going for the next 10. I do still believe he is the better money goalie when it's a big game and you need a win. I think he probably gives you the better chance than Mikko Koskinen. But I'm still iffy about both guys. If
my confidence rating in Mike Smith right now is a 6 out of 10, you're like, oh, that's not very good. But 2 weeks ago, it was a 1 out of 10. So, it's not close to a 10 out of 10 just yet, but it's a lot beyond where it was. If they were to play the Kings in game 1 tomorrow night, Tommy, are you starting Mike Smith ahead of Mikko Koskinen?
Yeah. I think that's starting to become clear here.
And then are you just straight up at that point riding Mike Smith as well? Or is it like you lose and you're out? Or do you just say, Mike Smith, this is your series, unless obviously he goes to shit or something?
If he goes to shit and right away, then you switch to Koskinen. There's no extra length on that leash. There's no Dave Tippett favoritism. But it seems to me, at least, like the indication is Mike Smith is their guy. Unless Mikko Koskinen is still sick. But, it's been a few days since he had to... Who
do you think starts against Colorado?
I think it's Mike Smith. He played good against Colorado in Colorado a couple of weeks ago. And the Oilers get 2 cracks at Colorado in these last 10 games. So if it doesn't go well for Smith tomorrow, which is my guess to be the starter, then, Mikko Koskinen, have at her in a couple of weeks here when they come back to town.
See, and he's been so good lately, I'd still be nervous with Mike Smith in net against Colorado. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, keep proving us wrong, man. It's great to see. Good for him. Maybe finally getting some momentum. Let's just leave it at that, I guess, for right now. Tommy, their next 6, it's not easy. It's Colorado, and then with Minnesota and Nashville on the road, then home for Vegas, Dallas, and Colorado again. What would you view as a good 6-game stretch for the Oilers here? Which is, after that, what do they got? 4 games after that, right? So it's So it's, this is the big stretch. All the big tests that you're going to get the rest of the way are in your next 6. Is 3-3 good enough? Would 2-3-1 be good enough?
3-3 is all right. I think, I would look at 3-2-1 as really good. 3-3, decent, and 2-3-1,
That's not the end of the world, man. If they come out of this stretch 2-3-1 and are still holding down second place in the Pacific, I'm not going to have many complaints.
No, exactly. I mean, this is a tough stretch here. Minnesota, good team. Colorado, juggernaut. And Nashville is ramping up at the right time. And my goodness, Roman Josi, what a season he's having.
Oh, man.
So this is a great test. And 2-3-1, adequate. 3-3-0, that's all right. And 3-2-1, I think would be pretty darn good.
Somebody pointed it out on my show today. 2-3-1 will be okay if one of the wins is against Colorado and the other one's against Vegas. You know what I mean? Like, you get the Vegas one to make sure they stay behind you. You get one of the ones against Colorado to say, hey, look, beat the Western Conference favorites. So, yeah, I can kind of understand where people will be coming from depending on how that 2-3-1 comes about, if that is the case. Who knows? Maybe they go 5-1 or something and continue to roll. All right, let's get to your Ken Morrison Remax question of the day, brought to you by Ken Morrison. Visit his website at kenrmorrison.com. He's been a realtor for 20 years. He is a Remax Hall of Famer with Remax Excellence. Tommy, what's the Ken Morrison Remax question of the day?
All right, the Ken Morrison Remax question of the day is this, along the same lines as what we were just talking about, Dusty. If the Oilers, say, go 2-3-1, 3-3-0, or 3-2-1 in the next 6. Or I was even going to keep it smaller and go, hey, if they win 2 of these next 3 or get good results against Colorado, Minnesota, and Nashville, would that convince you that this team might be legit and could make noise in the postseason?
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I do. It's the West just doesn't intimidate me, Tommy. Like, is that fair? Like, does it intimidate you? Like, when you have McDavid and Draisaitl, Colorado intimidates me. Let's say that. I would take McDavid and Draisaitl into a gunfight against Sutter and the Calgary Flames. You know what I mean? Like, Johnny Gaudreau's never done anything in the playoffs. So how do we know all of a sudden Johnny Gaudreau's great season is going to continue in the playoffs when Darnell Nurse is in his face all night, or if he has to go up against Roman Josi in the playoffs or something along those lines? Like, that's not going to be an easy out. So I with the way it's set up right now, we talked about it yesterday on Two Guys and a Goalie. I was like, lock this thing in. Home ice advantage against the Kings in the first round. If you can get that momentum coming out of there, buddy. Like, no matter how the Penguins always were, when you had Crosby and Malkin, you were always considered a contender. And the Oilers aren't there yet, but they are a runaway, a conference final runaway, maybe even just getting to the second round and really pushing a good team and not getting hosed by a goaltender having his 5-hole yanked open on you. They're one of those runs away from also being, the Oilers can certainly contend with McDavid and Draisaitl. We hadn't seen them do it before, but now, of course, you've got McDavid and Draisaitl. You're a contender as opposed to let's see if the Oilers can get out of the first round. And I think they can prove that this year. I think Draisaitl and McDavid on different lines with Nugent Hopkins on the third line, even in the last 2 games, buddy. When they didn't have Leon Draisaitl and you had to move Nuge up, your bottom 6 was non-existent, in my opinion. Like, there was no guys moving the needles there at all. When you can run McDavid and Draisaitl and Nuge down the middle, you can match up against any forward group in the West for sure. Worry about the East when you get there. So, yeah, I think they could. I think they could do some damage.
Yeah, there's parallels to 2017 that are starting to form. At least I'm starting to see. I'm getting these flashbacks of deja vu where I was like, "Geez, this looks oddly familiar." The big question still is going to be the goalies. Obviously, I think the defense gets a lot of heat for a lot of the mistakes that the forwards make and some weak goals that the goalies allow. I don't think it's a great defense. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's probably a little bit better than some people give it credit for.
Kulak has helped, buddy. He's helped that blue line.
Man, he jumps up more than I thought, and he's smooth with the puck and just steady, like really, really steady. So he's been a good addition, and I like that pickup for sure. I do think that this team could, make a surprise run to the conference final. It's starting to feel that way.
Yeah.
And you know what? The other thing, too, is after the 17 run, the Oilers were a contender for the Cup going into that 17-18 season, and
they were picked by many.
Picked by many, and they fell flat on their face. So it feels like we're back at that point, and if they can make that kind of run again, then yeah, the belief system in the team from outside this market will probably grow. And listen, the goaltending question will not go away until they actually bring someone in or someone shows that can stabilize things, and rightly so. But yeah, I think this team, if it has a good little window here, I think it might be able to show its mettle and be a team that could make a bit of noise in the playoffs.
That's your Ken Morrison Remax question of the day. Give them a call, 780-993-4815. Tommy, before I let you go, I had a few people message in on this. Had some people texting me this morning on my show. I didn't get to it. And that's the play of Zach Kassian as of late. And at this point, you think if you're the Oilers, are you just hoping that you can salvage playoff Kassian for a bit? Like, I don't know what you expect from Kassian down the stretch in the regular season, but I feel like they're like, all right, game one of a playoff series. This is a guy who can maybe kind of change the momentum with a big hit here or there. And maybe that's all you can get out of him at this point, buddy. But maybe that's what they're hoping. Do you think that's reasonable to expect? Can you think he can still make that type of impact when the going gets tough in the postseason?
I hope so. And sadly, I think we're at that point where that's the hope, is that he turns into playoff Zach Kassian from a few years ago. And I think he had a couple of good games last season too in the playoffs. But last night I was watching him, especially considering what he didn't do against San Jose, where he was a non-factor again. And I remember he had a couple of hits and he had a nice backtrack with a good stick that poked a puck and went into the stands. And I was like, good stick. And that was it. And I was like, he had a better game than Tuesday, but he really didn't do much. I know he doesn't play special teams, and I was like, maybe he's a deterrent to Brendan Lemieux last night. And I was like, is that worth much?
Who also didn't play much, right?
No, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think as soon as he signed, I like Zach Kassian. I think he's a great guy. I'm happy to see him turn his life around after what happened with him in Montreal. And you know what? The Oilers helped him with that, and that's great. But he's not the same player that was playing in the 19-20 season. He's not the same guy from 18-19, certainly not the same guy from 16-17. I just think he got too comfortable after he signed that contract, and it's too bad.
We'll see. It'd be big if he can come out and make an impact in a playoff series against the Kings and then possibly against the Flames, not to get ahead of things. But maybe there's still some of the story to be written here with Kassian before you have to maybe figure out how to free up just that money, let alone the player in the offseason. So that's something to look at as well. Tommy, what time do you get going with the pregame show on Saturday night?
6:30 we get going. Big game against the Avs. 2 more meetings against Colorado. So myself, Connor Halley, and Matty Kassian at 6:30, and then Jeff Walker, post-game Ranger, slides in on the post-game show. It's going well with him. And today we celebrate Hernan, right?
Yes. We're going to go catch up tonight and have a couple beverages as Hernan leaves after a good run at TSN 1260s now with the Edmonton Elks. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. We're going to see Dave Jamieson tonight. It's going to be nice, Tommy. I can't wait, man.
And we got TSN jackets. Yay.
That's a really good point, too. I don't know where I put mine, but it's around here somewhere. So we'll find that too. So it'll be nice to see Hernan tonight. So I'll see you tonight. It's going to be a fun evening. You've got the pregame tomorrow. We'll be back with 2 more episodes of the Oil Stream next week. All brought to you by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Over a dozen locations in Edmonton, so you can always get your hands on one of their delicious Popeye's chicken sandwiches. Tommy, I'll see you tonight. Enjoy the game tomorrow, buddy, and I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Have a fun opening day, Gibby.
I will.